Westwood One presents America at Night. Here's your host, McGraw Millhaven.
Martin Luther King Day. Do you say Happy Martin Luther King Day? Do you say, I don't know what you say. Anyway, it's Martin Luther King Day. Hope you had a moment to reflect on the actual reason for the day. Nonviolent protests, very important, especially these days. McGraw Millhaven here. We have got a show for you tonight. Hour number 3. Of course, we're going to take phone calls, and we'll take phone calls on everything. But one of the big issues today is President Trump's letter to Denmark saying, hey, I didn't get the Nobel Peace Prize, so I think I just might take Greenland. Well, that's what the whole country is talking about. In hour number 2, while the rest of the country is talking about and chewing on that fact, we're going to be talking to a man who has spent the last 3 years in Greenland. He has written the #1 best-selling book on Amazon. It just came out. It's called Polar War. His name is Kenneth Rosen, Submarines, Spies, and the Struggle for Power in the Melting Arctic. And this is getting rave reviews because we find out exactly what is going on with Greenland, what is going on with the melting ice, what is going on with Russia, what is going on with China. That is all coming up in hour number 2, so you don't want to stick around for that. Hour number 1, we talked about this last week, and he has agreed to come on the show. Of course, we're talking about one of the 52 Iranian hostages who were held for 444 days. His name is Rocky Sickmann. He has gone on to lead an extraordinary life after being held captive by the Iranian students in Tehran in 1979 and 1980. He now works for Folds of Honor, and he is going to be our guest coming up here in just a minute. I want to save plenty of time for him, so what we're going to do is we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back and talk with him and get his thoughts on, well, a walk down memory lane. What does he remember? What happened? His perspective, and then, of course, what are his thoughts today as he watches the protests in Iran, as that Iranian revolutionary government, which was swept into power after they held him hostage for 52 days. Now they're on the brink, possibly, of collapsing. It changed the world, and he was on the inside. So we'll get a chance to talk with him coming up here in just a moment. But first, let me tell you about a better digital life with our partner, Webroot. New year, new devices, new you, and new peace of mind. You can get help protecting your devices, identity, and your privacy in 2026. Choose the protection that fits your life with Webroot Essentials or Webroot Total Protection. Now, Webroot makes it easy to choose the protection that's right for you. Got a new device? Webroot Essential delivers lightning-fast antivirus plus password manager and web threat shield, helping protect your devices, your personal information, and your passwords from malware, ransomware, and more. We choose Webroot Total Protection. Now, that's the all-in-one device, privacy and identity theft that takes the guesswork out of the cybersecurity with antivirus, identity protection, VPN, cloud backup, web tool protection. It helps keep our entire digital life protected with one subscription. Now, it's a new year, new device. Whether you're upgrading tech or sticking with what you've got, now is the time to protect all of it with you and your family's devices. 60% off with Webroot's trusted cybersecurity solutions. This new year, choose the protection that's right for you. Visit webroot.com/AAN in lowercase. It's got to be lowercase, or they're not going to give you 60% off. That's webroot.com/AAN, lowercase, for 60% off Webroot.
Live from coast to coast, this is America at Night with McGraw Millhaven. This is America at Night with McGraw Millhaven.
Well, it was almost 47 years ago, on November 4th, 1979, Iranian students loyal to the Ayatollah Khomeini scaled the walls of the U.S. Embassy in Tehran with little or no resistance. It was supposed to be a symbolic occupation only for a couple of hours. Instead, it lasted 444 days. It destroyed Jimmy Carter's re-election bid It swept Ronald Reagan into office, and it changed the world forever. One of those hostages, a U.S. Marine, 22 years old, was held for 444 days, is Rocky Sickmann, and he joins us now. Rocky, welcome to America at Night. Thanks for joining us.
McGraw, thank you so much for having me. And by the way, tomorrow is 45 years ago that we came home.
Is that right? Oh my goodness!
Yes.
I remember it. I remember it like it was yesterday. They wheeled in the television into our science class. We watched it as President Ronald Reagan was sworn in. They came over the loudspeaker. The whole world stopped when they heard you left Iranian airspace. Just 45 years later, what are your thoughts as you get ready for the anniversary?
Well, it is interesting. You said something earlier that when they attacked us, I truly believe as I look back in those 47 years, McGraw, I'm walking into the motor pool gate that morning about 30 yards from the main gate. If you've ever traveled or any of your listeners traveled overseas to an American embassy, you have to get through the host government security. And I can tell you that morning, I will go to my grave and I will tell every morning, every American, that morning of November 4th, when I looked at the front gate, there was no security, none whatsoever. They were coming over the wall like ants. I got back into the Chancery, and I'm happy to tell you that 7 Marines held that American embassy for 4 hours waiting for the host government, the Islamic Republic of Iran, to come to protect us. And I'm here to tell you, they never showed. And that's why I truly believe that the Islamic Republic of Iran, they were part of it. They wanted it. And you know what? They got the $8.3 billion that the United States gave them to release us 444 days later. So the day of November 4th is the day that the war on terrorism started, McGraw.
Yeah,
and I'm here to tell you, I will never forget it.
Yeah, no, there's no question the world changed that day. And, now you talk about embassy protection and security. It's much different. But back then, it was virtually unheard of because you would never attack an embassy. That was there would be no reason to.
No, you're absolutely right. And that's why they stated it was a group of students. Well, that was the group of students that were told to do it by the Islamic Republic of Iran. And by the way, we're not going to have any security that's going to be there to bother you. So you take them, and then we'll take it from there, because we were then taken from the American embassy. There was a rescue operation, April 24th, 1980. I don't know if you remember that, McGraw.
Yeah.
We as hostages had no idea. They put us in vehicles, drove us from Tehran to Isfahan, and they didn't tell us where we were going. We were blindfolded, handcuffed, with a blanket over top of us, and we had no idea. They were moving all the hostages, because on the morning of April 25th, when the attempt was supposed to have taken place, all the hostages were in the Chancery. By the evening of April 25th, they had moved all the hostages to other government buildings throughout the country of Iran so that they could never find us. And so that's why, they took us, because they wanted the Shah to come back and stand on trial for the atrocities, the killings that he and the Salvac had done. I want to go back and say, are the mullahs and the Revolutionary Guard telling me that they're better? They've killed 4,000 innocent Iranians, McGraw. And, I'm so happy. 47 years later, Iran, the Islamic Republic of Iran, not the Iranian people, to my understanding, McGraw, there are 90 million Iranian people. Out of that 90 million, 60% of them are 39 years of age or younger. They want freedom. They want peace. And so the radical government is finally meeting their maker, and I hope the time will come, a new government will come.
Yeah, let's talk about what you're seeing today. Do you think they have the energy? Do they have the power to overtake the government today?
It's the people have been out there, and I know that recently, from what I understand, President Trump has stated it's time for a new government. So you know what? I have no idea. I know that the Shah, his son, is in a holding pattern, not to come back as a dictator, but a democratic, ruler of the government of Iran, if and when that government does fall. But it's a beautiful country, and the history, and wonderful people, but it's the radical government that's led them down the wrong path, taken the money that should have been put back into the country of Iran, but instead have put into proxies in the Middle East to create terrorism. And so, shame on them. And obviously the Iranian people want better and they deserve it.
Yeah. A lot of people don't realize Iran is a very educated country, very forward-thinking, very westernized, right? And so they're being sort of held hostage themselves and held captive by the same government.
In McGraw, it's interesting to know that many of the leaders of the radical Islamic Republic of Iran, their children are living here in the United States freely and criticizing our government. I mean, can you ever imagine such a thing happening? If I was to go over to Iran and criticize the Islamic Republic of Iran, I'd be hung from the highest building. So, these individuals that are over here that are children of the radical Islamic Republic of Iran need to be deported.
Yeah. Rocky Sickmann, our guest, one of the 52 American hostages, right? With 45 years tomorrow, you were released. Take me through. I know you wrote a book about it, and I know you've told this story numerous times, but I it's just hearing from you is such an honor for all of us to truly understand this story. How were you held with the other 52? I know you talked about being held in solitary. Take us through some of those moments of those 444 days.
Well, and let me go back to that first morning, because like I said, 7 Marines held that embassy. They finally broke through the basement of the embassy, McGraw. And who did they bring forward but 4 Iranian women in black chadors? And the men were behind them, pushing them forward, knowing that the Marines would not shoot on our innocent people. We were told, stand down, don't fire. Tear gas was released. They fled the building. We go up to the very top of the building. At this point in time, President Carter had said that it was going to be 18 hours before help was going to get to us. And by this time, the Islamic Republic of Iran, the individuals were bringing hostages that they had already gathered outside. If you did not make it in that building, you were immediately taken. And so they were bringing them to the opposite side of the door and putting pistols to their head and saying, they got a gun to my head. If you don't open the door, they're going to kill me. So finally, President Carter told us to give ourselves up. The Marines were the first ones out. And I can tell you, for the next 30, 40 days, we sat tied. You only spoke unless you were interrogated. You sat in the corner of a room, McGraw. At night, they would put you on the floor and tie your wrists to your ankles. And in the morning, you would wake back up and you would go to the corner of the room. And at the age of 22, I grew up in a small town of Crocodile, Missouri, population 50, and that was dogs and cats included. And my parents, God love them, there was 7 of us that lived in a house of 900 square foot. I didn't have 5 sisters like you did, but I had 2 sisters and 2 other brothers. And, but my parents, the holidays, they made it like it was the Ritz-Carlton. And I can just remember as I sat in that chair, I would just wake up in the morning and I would have to go to a happy place of just growing up in that small town of Crocodile, Missouri. Sleigh riding down Ahos Hill, winning the state championship in football in 1973. I was underclassman, but, you just relived your past. And it wasn't until that first Thanksgiving you sat there and you knew that back home, your family were all reunited, gathering and eating good food. And here you sat, not without having freedom. And I'm sitting there, it's 1979, and I'm sitting there thinking, in 1975, the Vietnam veterans, when they came home, McGraw, they were spit on. Nobody cared about them. And through the broken windows and through the traffic and the horns honking and the demonstrations, and I was thinking, if nobody cared about those thousands of people, who's going to care about 60-some Americans at an American embassy? We spent our first Christmas. It wasn't until January they put us into a room where I was locked in a room with Jerry Plotkin. He was the only American civilian, along with another Marine, Billy Gallegos. And we went outside out of those 400 days, 7 times out of 400. And you were locked in that room. If you had to go to the restroom, you had to knock on the door because they locked us in the offices of the Chancery. And if you had to go to the restroom, you had to put a piece of paper underneath the door. They would come, blindfold you, and take you to the restroom. You knew where everything was, but you were not allowed outside that room for 400 days. And so, like I said, it was the rescue operation. They moved us. They moved us to Isfahan. We didn't know until we got there, and there was no stopping for a restroom. So you had to get cleaned up by the time you got to that next location. They then took you to another location. When they moved us, they said, you've been to Isfahan, you're going to another location. And then, of course, not only are you held hostage, McGraw, there's a war with Iran and Iraq that breaks out, I believe, in September of 1980. And here we are living in Shiraz, and we didn't know it at the time, but there's mortars hitting around our building. And we had no idea what was happening. And they drove us blindfolded, handcuffed, back to Tehran, and they put us in even prison, again, a government building where we sat during the war of Iran and Iraq, where dogfights were over the city. You then spent your second Thanksgiving and you spent your second Christmas, and things weren't getting any better. They were getting worse. You were losing hope. I turned 23 in that hole, and the only thing you wanted was to get freedom. And it wasn't until January of 1980, McGraw, that they had came in. They had taken our shoes from us in March of 1980, and it's January of 1981. And they come into our room, and they said it's time to go. As they always told whenever there was time to go, they came and they blindfolded us. So you're thinking, if you're going home, why would they blindfold you? I mean, they had complete control of you for 444 days. So they take us from the room blindfolded. I'm the first one. Jerry's got his arm on my shoulder. We walk out of the room. He stops. He turns me. The door opens, and you feel this cold, fresh air. And the shoes that we had were open-toed, sandaled shoes. And I walked out, and I walked in something I hadn't felt for 2 years, and it was snow. And I
hold that
walked
thought, Rocky Sickmann, our guest. Hold that thought. 45 years ago tomorrow, he's talking about when he was released as one of the 52 Iranian hostages. Rocky Sickmann is our guest. Stay right there. America at Night. Back in a moment.
This is America at Night with McGraw Millhaven. You're listening to America at Night with McGraw Millhaven.
It was 45 years ago tomorrow. The world stopped when Ronald Reagan was sworn in as President of the United States. And at that same moment, the 52 American hostages that were held by Iran left Iranian airspace. And everyone in the world, in the English-speaking world, in the democracy world, clapped and gasped and cried. Our guest, Rocky Sickmann, was one of those 52 Iranian hostages who was on his way home. Rocky, I want to get to the aftermath after you were released, but one more question about your captivity. You have mentioned on numerous occasions that the power of prayer helped you through some of your darkest moments. Talk about that for a moment.
Yes, it was one of those things. My mother, when I went to boot camp, McGraw, and I apologize for rattling so much.
No, go ahead. You've earned the right, Rocky, to rattle all you want.
She told me when I left for boot camp, she goes, son, you go to church. Someday you're going to need God. And she was so right. I had never prayed so hard in my life. And like I said, I wanted one last chance, and that was to live again. And I was telling that story about leaving that room that night, blindfolded. They put us onto a vehicle, drove us off, and all of a sudden, 30 minutes later, they turn. You hear a sound of a of a plane. And this is something that you had prayed for 444 days. And I can tell you, God is with me every day. And whenever I'm having a bad day, the number 444, it hits me. It's a reminder. And I don't know if you know what 444 stands for. Angels are on your shoulder. But that's how many days we were held hostage. But that night of January 20th, the plane, you hear the sound of the airplane, we stop, we're blindfolded. They tell us to unblindfold. You're looking at people that you hadn't seen for 444 days. You look bad and smell bad, and all of a sudden they start plucking us, put us onto an airplane, and all of a sudden they start closing the door, and you're looking around and saying, hey, wait, where's Gene? Where's Debbie? Where's Judy? Where's everybody else? And they said, no, you're the last. The others were let go a year earlier. We had no idea that other people had been let go a year earlier, and we were the remaining 52. And the plane, Algerian airline that was there to pick us up. And like I said, thank goodness that there was a war with Iran and Iraq, because I think Iran needed weapons to fight the Iraqis. And that's why the United States paid $8.3 billion to release us. And that night, January 20th, back home was the inauguration. And all of a sudden, we get to the end of the runway, McGraw, and the pilot's got his foot on the brake. He starts accelerating, and all of a sudden, it comes back down to an idle. He tells us that the lights are off. They waited 20 minutes until President Carter was out of office and President Reagan was in. They weren't Democrat. They weren't Republican. They just hated our government. And after that plane took off, when I came home, I made my first phone call home to my parents, and I find out that 8 people lost their life, McGraw, because of me on that rescue operation. These are 8 people that would never be able to go fishing with their son as I have. Those 8 people would never be able to go walk their daughter down the aisle as I have. Those 8 individuals would never be able to hold their grandkids as I have. And every morning I wake up, and I work for Folds of Honor now that provides scholarships to children and spouses of fallen and disabled military and first responders. Each day I earn it in memory of those 8 individuals.
I want to talk about Folds of Honor because that is a wonderful organization. Getting ready for this interview, I didn't know that you became very friendly with President Jimmy Carter.
You know what? He was a good man. I had no idea until coming back that he had met with our families for those 14 months that we were over there. And, it was one time at the Atlanta baseball game, he was down there, and I wrote a little note to an usher to give to him because I couldn't get close to him. And so he got up and turned around. But he came and met all the hostages when we came home in 1981. He flew from D.C. over to Germany, met him in my pajamas, which you don't meet a president too often in pajamas. But, he was a kind man. And the Islamic Republic of Iran just used that against him and, humiliated him. But, it's been 47 years, McGraw, that we allowed this radical belief to continue. And now it's filtered into our own country. And so shame on us that we must try to stop it and let the Iranian people have a beautiful country like they had before.
Rocky Sickmann, you were 22 years old when you were taken captive, and your girlfriend at the time was a woman named Jill. What happened to your girlfriend, Jill?
You know what? That night when I called home, my dad said, Rocky, Jill's here. Do you ever see the movie Castaway, McGraw?
Yes. Yeah.
Well, I didn't have a locket, but I had her picture. And I can tell you those first 30-plus days, they were the darkest hours of my life. I mean, they wanted us to break. They wanted us to make derogatory statements. And I just told myself, if I ever get out of here, I'm going to marry this girl. And that night when I called home, my dad said, Rocky, Jill's here. I said, oh, is she? He goes, well, she wants to talk to you. I said, well, shit, that doesn't sound good. I didn't know if she was going to get married or what. And at that point in time, she said, Rocky, you got to choose me or the military. And I chose wisely. And I went to work for Camel X here in St. Louis, Robert Hyland, in 1981, and then joined Anheuser-Busch in 1982. But yes, she had waited, and we've been married now 45 years this year. And we have 3 beautiful children and 5 grandkids, McGraw.
What a wonderful story. How hard was it to re-engage in society?
It was very difficult, and it still is to this day. I mean, it's one of those things. Every time you hear the word Iran, whenever you hear it on the news, it just it comes back. It never will go away. It's like a traumatic, car accident. If any of your listeners have gone through a traumatic time in your life, you don't forget that. You don't forget 444 days of being held hostage, not knowing if you're going to live or die morning, noon, or night for 444 days. And so it was difficult, but like I said, now I use my energy, and every morning, like I said, I think of those 8, and I give my energy back to Folds of Honor. This year we provided over 11,000 scholarships in the school year 2025-2026, and the sad part about those 11,000, approximately 7,700 qualified applicants did not even receive full funding due to limited resources. So it's one of those things. I ask any of your listeners, if they want to give the Folds of Honor, go to foldsofhonor.org, make a donation. But that's what drives me, McGraw, every day to wake up and continue to fight because freedom is not free. And those guys gave their life to try to attempt to come over and rescue me. And I mean, when you hear the plans of what they attempted, this is 1979, McGraw. That rescue operation created U.S. SOCOM to what it is this day.
Talk for a moment about Folds of Honor. You mentioned it a couple times. What exactly do they do, Rocky?
Yes, they provide scholarships to children and spouses of fallen and disabled military and first responders. And since 2007, when I was working at Anheuser-Busch, one day security calls and says, hey, there's a guy down in the lobby in a flight uniform and wants to meet you. And so I go downstairs and I meet Major Rooney. First full solid call with Major Rooney, 2007. Since that time, over 73,000 scholarships that we have provided. That's $340 million to these children and spouses of fallen, disabled military and first responders. And so it's a never-ending opportunity. And like I said, we had unfunded 7,700 in the school year, and so definitely funds are needed for that.
Yeah, foldsofhonor.org. Not only, Rocky Sickmann, were you guys welcome back, unlike the Vietnam veterans, but they gave you a ticker tape parade. Did you go to the ticker tape parade?
The one in New York, no, I had plans. What I did get, though, that 1981, I went down to spring training with Jack Buck and Mike Shannon, and I called the games with them for a whole week because, baseball kept me alive through my whole captivity. I came home throughout the first pitch, and who was there? Gussie Busch. Gussie Busch presented me a lifetime membership baseball pass. And so I did not make the ticker tape parade because I had other events in St. Louis, but I did have my circle around Busch Stadium, which was memories, like I said, that kept me alive for 444 days. Because how were you able to get baseball news in captivity? No, you didn't baseball. You just remembered listening to Jack Buck and Mike Shannon when I was a little kid with the transistor radio. I mean, you used to just remember those. And so in captivity, we would just sit there and talk about the different teams. And if you ever got out, you wanted to go to a baseball game. And little did I realize that I would be thrown out the first pitch. But no, these were all memories of just growing up playing Indian ball, just like Sandlot. And then
so the only way to stay sane was to remember baseball and the baseball games and days and stats and players and things you did to help stay sane.
Absolutely, and continue to pray. And I mean, like I said, there was one time I can tell you when I was writing in my diary, and Jerry and Billy. We had, during the fighting of Iran and Iraq, they would turn the lights out. We had candles. That's the only way that you would have light in your room because they had a blackout. And so I blew the candle out, and we slept on 3-inch full mattresses. And one night, Billy and Jerry are both laying on their mats, and we always said, hey, if that door opens abruptly, get ready to jump. And so one night, I'm looking underneath, and I can watch the guard walk back and forth in the hallway. You could see the light underneath the door, and I sat there, McGraw, and you asked about, my religion. I asked God, I said, give me a sign and let me know that you're with me. And about that time, the door rattles. And it rattled so hard that the guard that was pacing in the corridor stopped, and you could see his feet come and stop right in front of our door. And he opens up the door, and Billy and Jerry jump to their knees, and I'm sitting there still laying on a mat with my eyes, bulging out of my head. And the guard says, "Gee," which means what? What do you want? No, we did not knock. And he closed the door. And I tell Billy and Jerry about this sign that I had just gotten from God. And like I said, that God still comes to me when I'm having a bad day, McGraw. You could be catching a 6:30 flight in the morning. You're running around with the chicken, like a chicken with your head chopped off. You go to a convenience store, you get a water, a breakfast bar, and a banana, and you go to pay, and it was $4.44. And it's like God saying, Rocky, catching a 6:30 flight is nothing in relationship to being held hostage where they put you up against a wall and put rifles to the back of your head like a mock firing squad. I mean, that was a bad time. Catching a 6:30 flight is nothing. So it's a reminder that he comes and shares with me all the time.
The website is foldsofhonor.org. 45 years ago tomorrow, he was released from captivity. He was one of the 52 American hostages held by Iran. And last question for you, Rocky Sickmann. Do you still have the golden Major League ticket that Major League Baseball gave you that allows you to enter any Major League Baseball game in perpetuity?
Absolutely. It's in the safe deposit box, although I do lend it out to the Soldiers Memorial where I have an exhibit. That's when you know you're old, McGraw, when they put you in a museum here. But I put it there to show people. But, yes, I still do have it.
Do you have any friends who are Iranian back? You made friends there, still friends with anybody? Do you still talk with anybody back there?
No.
No,
Not maintained, but, I always told my wife, I said, I was only there like 28 days earlier and never really had the chance to see the country. And I said, someday I would love to go back. And my wife said, if you go back, you won't have a wife when you come back. And,
I'm with her. You've been enough. Last question for you, Rocky. Again, the current events going on there. Do you think it's possible that there would be? I mean, you live long enough, the Shah's son might take over. I mean, what are your thoughts as you watch all this latest news from Iran?
Like I said, I watch the news just like everybody else, all your listeners. But I understand that he wants to go back and he wants to build his country. The Shah, I wasn't there during the Shah's regime. He had fled in January of 1979. I got there October. So, he was trying to build a westernized country. And then the Islamic Republic of Iran came into power in April of 1979 and basically just shut down any Western type of, building. And so I believe that these individuals, like I said, 90 million, 60% of them are 39 years or age or younger. I think they want peace and I think they want some freedom.
Yeah. Rocky Sickmann, you now work for foldsofhonor.org, giving back. Rocky Sickmann, it is an honor to speak with you on such a special day for you and your family. I thank you for your efforts. I thank you for your service. I thank you for your continued service at Folds of Honor, and I know everybody else here does. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule, and best of luck to you and your family. Thank you, sir, for everything.
Thank you, McGraw. It was an honor.
You got it. Rocky Sickmann with us, one of the 52 Iranian hostages. 45 years ago tomorrow, he was released. The website, one more time, foldsofhonor.org, foldsofhonor.org. America at Night. Back in a moment.
From the heart of America, this is America at Night with McGraw Millhaven. Welcome to America at Night with McGraw Millhaven.
Hey, let's try and sneak in a phone call here. Shannon in Maryland. Shannon, welcome to America at Night.
Hi, it's Sharon, Sharon, but thank you
Sharon, I
very much for
apologize.
taking my call. The two things that are kind of important to me are Tower to Tower and Falls of Freedom. And it's very important to me because as a young Marine, the gentleman that was just on, and I'm not too good with names, as a Marine, somebody that served as a Prince George's County firefighter wound up at the same station that my grandfather served in when the ladder truck was drawn by 3 horses.
Oh, wow.
And he this particular Marine I'm talking about, 3 weeks before he was due home from Afghanistan, was killed in action.
Sharon, we all have a Sharon. I'm only cutting you off because I'm short on time. I just want to make sure everyone knows that the two organizations that you're talking about, Tunnels to Towers and the Folds of Honor.
Tower to Tower.
Tower
to
to Tower.
9/11.
Gotcha. And then
And
Folds
this
of Honor.org. Sharon, I've got to go. I'm short on time. I apologize. I tried to sneak in at the top of the hour. I saw you waiting a long time. I didn't want to cut you off, but I am short on time.
That's
Sharon,
okay. I understand.
Thank you for listening, Sharon. Have yourself a nice night. Thank you very much.
Yes.
All right, stay right there. When we come back, we're going to check in with a man who has spent the last 3 years in Iceland and the Arctic. The new book, number one on Amazon, called Polar Wars, Submarines, Spies, and the Struggle for Power in the Melting Arctic. Kenneth Rosen is going to be our guest next hour. And if you missed any of Rocky's interview, AmericaAtNightLive.com. You can go back and listen to it if you want to. Our engineer tonight is Alex Hinton. Our executive director is Alex Hinton. Our engineer is Richard Good. Guys, don't get confused. I'm McGraw Millhaven, and this is America at Night on Westwood One.
Westwood One presents America at Night. Here's your host, McGraw Millhaven.
Number 2, we'll take open phones next hour. The whole country is throwing their opinion around about Greenland after President Trump's tweets and letters and everything else that now Greenland is back in the center of the universe. We're going to talk to a man who actually knows what he's talking about because he spent the last 3 years there researching his brand new book. It's called Polar War, Submarines, Spies, and the Struggle for Power in a Melting Arctic. Kenneth Rosen is our guest. He has spent the last 3 years up there. This book just came out and is number one on Amazon. Polar War is the book. Kenneth Rosen is our guest. Kenneth, welcome to America at Night.
Hey, McGraw. Thanks so much.
Take me back 3 years or even longer. What was the impetus? What did you see? How did you see the future? Tell me how this book came to be.
Sure, and I appreciate the opportunity to dive a little deeper. It started off as a magazine assignment. I had a discussion with my editors at Politico magazine to look in different parts of the world where conflicts could erupt, and to dive a little deeper into understanding what is being overlooked as far as cross-border issues with national security, specifically American national security. So I went on a reporting trip for a few weeks up to the archipelago of Svalbard, which is a cluster of islands about 800 miles north of mainland Norway. And it seemed like everyone there was already aware of a coming conflict in the circumpolar north, in the Arctic and subarctic. It was plain that after Russia's invasion of Ukraine, there were more and more opportunities for Russia to destabilize countries near and far. And one of those areas and one of those countries was Norway. And one of those areas was the Arctic, a place that, of course, Russia deems its own. It's got the longest Arctic littoral coastline. It has a national identity that is tied to the Arctic and Arctic exploration, and it is melting 5 times faster than the rest of the planet, warming 5 times faster than the rest of the planet. And with their country, Russia, underlain by 60% of permafrost, is a big deal. And they're worried about their own national security, and that is jeopardizing the rest of the world's security when it comes to the north. And now, of course, it seems like the book was timed perfectly. But to those of us who have been looking into it and have been researching it and traveling across the high north and the circumpolar north, it's been plain for many years that there would be issues arising both diplomatically and militarily. And
and that's what
to start.
I'm sorry, that's where the in the book you sort of document the last 3 years of the skirmishes that have been going on that we'll get to, the book Polar War. But Kenneth, it all begins because of climate change, right? I mean, this all has now accelerated because of the melting ice.
Right. I mean, and that's really President Trump's admission, right, is that it's so important because it's becoming a place that is more accessible.
And how accessible is it becoming? Give us a sense, because this book is sort of half climate change, half politics around that climate change.
Sure. So there's no real annual way to traverse the Arctic unless you have an icebreaker. And there are the Northwest Passage, the Northeast Passage, and then the Transpolar Route. A Transpolar Route would cut right across the top to the North Pole. The other two, one is over Canada and the other one's over Russia. The Northern Sea Route is what Russia's trying to open up. And when I say open up, I mean it's now becoming more and more accessible because the ice in the summer is no longer there. Some scientists are saying that by 2030, the ice sheet at the top of the world will be gone. And that means more commercial traffic. And for commercial traffic, that lessens their current travels through the Suez Canal by 10 to 14 days. So that alone is causing a lot of excitement for governments looking to move into the north. But then there's also the question of minerals and things that have long been buried underneath ice that is now melting into the oceans.
So anecdotally, I've heard that everyone talks about the minerals, but then other people say even if we were to get the rights to the minerals today, it would take 15, 20 years before it ever came to market.
I mean, we're talking about Greenland, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So it's an interesting discussion, and we already have many agreements with the Kingdom of Denmark to be able to mine and get leases and operate equipment down there for the express purpose of rare earth extraction. But yeah, I think the general consensus is that it's still a very difficult climate to operate in. The light seasons are very short. The rest of the year it's very dark and cold, and the ice that is still there prevents boats from coming in and bringing equipment that is needed to start these drill sites, to say nothing of, Greenland being 2.5 times the size of Texas and only possessing 100 miles of roads. So the infrastructure just isn't even there to support it. I mean, we see how hard it is in Alaska, let alone a country with no infrastructure.
So part of the book you talk about climate change, and the other part you talk about a war, if it ever comes to this, which is unthinkable just a few years ago, is very different in Greenland and in the Arctic than anywhere else. Talk about that for a moment.
Yeah, the impetus for the book is climate change, but the primary focus of the book is then, the national security implications and how a lot of nations that count themselves among the Arctic 8, who are in the Arctic Council. We're talking about Scandinavian countries, Canada, U.S. They are preparing for a war. They have put in more and more spending to their defense budgets. They have increased infrastructure out in their northern parts of their countries, whether it be for space bases or military units that are training up there. And the wars that we would think would happen elsewhere will probably not happen in the Arctic. There's no real way to have a ground war, sustained ground war in the Arctic, the way we've seen in the Middle East or Africa or Asia. It would require people to go back to the basics. I mean, when I was reporting in Ukraine, I thought it was almost comical that they were using telegraph lines in order to communicate across their units. But in fact, when it gets so cold, the modern technologies, the plastics that are comprising our handheld portable radios are just too brittle and they break, or engines freeze, or the viscosity of oils and liquids don't become usable anymore. So there's all these things that other nations have been training for in the Arctic, but the U.S. just hasn't. So what I've been saying in the book, and as I'm promoting the book, is that what readers and listeners need to understand is that a war in the Arctic looks more like an accident that happens between a fishing vessel or a small unit clash that then horizontally escalates to somewhere else in the world and causes a bigger conflict there. So many people believe, and this is the way Washington has been gaming it out for the last 10 years, is that something like that will happen. A tourist ship will get trapped. Someone whose response territory for search and rescue does not respond on time, and that creates a diplomatic nightmare, which then launches troops elsewhere.
Kenneth Rosen, our guest. The book is called Polar War. We have a lot to get to with him. Polar War, Submarine, Spies, and the Struggle for Power for a Melting Arctic, not just Greenland. Polar War, #1 now on Amazon. We'll come back and ask him more questions. He is a well-respected journalist who spent the last 3 years researching this. Stay right there. Valuable information. America at Night, back in a moment.
America at Night with McGraw Millhaven. Coming to you from the heart of the nation, this is America at Night with McGraw Millhaven.
Our guest tonight is Kenneth Rosen. His work has appeared in The New Yorker, The New York Times, The Atlantic. He has written a couple of very well-respected books. And this book, Polar War, just came out, #1 bestseller on Amazon. If you want to know and understand the news today and not just scream and yell at people, Polar War is a great starting point, because this is exactly what people are talking about. Submarines, spies, and the struggle for power in a melting Arctic. Kenneth Rosen. If you have a question for our guest, he's going to stick around one more segment after this. So if you have a question, 1-844-2-McGraw, 1-844-262-4729. Line up now, and we'll try and get a couple of phone calls later on in the hour. Now, Kenneth, explain this to me. I understand the shipping lanes being, as you said, right, save you 10, 12 days instead of going through the Suez Canal. But is that so vital to our national interest that we would want to go to war and or become militarily engaged in something because of a shipping lane like that?
No, I think that they're two separate things. And I think that a lot of the discussion coming out of the White House is misconstruing or misleading in its rhetoric on the need for Greenland. I mean, it is true that Russia's trying to open up this shipping lane, and it is true that it's working with China to do so. And furthermore, it's true that they have been able to get liquid natural gas containers to go through in the winter months, despite there being ice. But it's Russia's under so many sanctions and is such a pariah in the geopolitical sphere that to work with them would be to circumvent those sanctions and to jeopardize your relationship with America, which 2 weeks ago I would have said was something that other countries didn't want to do. So right now that whole project is on the freeze. Forgive the terrible pun. But with Greenland, as far as Greenland's concerned, I mean, we've had a strong partnership with the Kingdom of Denmark for decades, for centuries even, and we can expand our national security footprint there. We can enlarge the base that is currently there. The problem seems to be that there's some imminent threat that none of us know about with respect to Russia and China in Greenland that is spurring this whole debate. But I think the most pressing concern is to actually double down on the resources and infrastructure that we do have there. But that doesn't seem to be what the end goal is. It just seems to be more caustic language to detract from other more important conversations, like the need to repair the base in Pacific and actually station military hardware there.
Yeah, talk about some of the skirmishes, because you saw a couple of skirmishes between the Russians and the Norwegians. Take me through that part of the book.
I was embedding with a Norwegian Coast Guard unit on an icebreaker out in the Barents Sea and then later into the Arctic Ocean, and they had a plan to rendezvous with the one American U.S. Coast Guard cutter icebreaker that is still in service. And I was with the Norwegians for about 2 weeks, and it was an awesome time. They were extraordinarily professional. They knew the waters well. They knew how to operate in ice. They knew how to operate in the extreme cold. They did close quarter combat training on the helo deck in the back, and it was really just eye opening to see them so fluid in the Arctic. And I just assumed that most militaries and Coast Guards would be the same if they had an Arctic presence. And then when we were transferring, we finally rendezvoused with the U.S. Coast Guard cutter Healy, and we were transferring from the one boat to the other ship. And right from the get-go, it seemed like the Americans were really beaten down by their journey. Now, granted, they were out there for a little over a month. They had come from Kodiak, Alaska, and had traveled north over the planet to get to Norway. And once I was on board, it just seemed like they were really worried about the potential for incursions with Russia. And of course, they should have been, but they should have also been prepared. At any rate, eventually we were traversing through a fog that had laid down over the Barents Sea and just shy of the Arctic Ocean, when a Russian Coast Guard vessel came out of nowhere. It didn't have its transponder on and launched a helicopter that then circled the U.S. ship several times before returning to its boat, and both it and the boat left. And the crew on board the U.S. Coast Guard ship was very disconcerted by the interaction. There were people were running around, and it seemed like they had trained for this, but were also very nervous about the encounter. To which finally a Norwegian captain noted that this was just every day in the Arctic, and you have to work with people who work here too. That it shouldn't have been anything more than another day for them, but it was extraordinary for the Americans. And I think the other thing that really shocked me was, as a show of force, the U.S. had called a Poseidon spycraft to come and sort of buzz the plane too and do a show of force flyover, but that plane wasn't able to come down through the clouds because it was experiencing icing on the wings, and they weren't even equipped to have the spy plane out there, it seems. So it was disappointing as an American to be on the ship and see how ill prepared, or at least worried they were about operating in the high north when the Norwegians were so cool and collected.
Everyone looks at the map of the world and looks at a flat map and sort of sees the United States and might see Iceland and Greenland, but nobody really looks at a map from the top, right? From the North Pole being the center of the map. And the book talks about the Arctic region, right? You have Russia and Canada and Greenland and Alaska and Finland and Sweden and Norway, all within that Arctic region. What's Russia's goal here? What do they want to do, and how do they want to take advantage of all this that's going on?
I think initially they wanted to assert their dominance in the Arctic and be the leading power that's operating there. And I think they've worked to accomplish that. They have a fleet of 50-something icebreakers. They have reopened a dozen or more Cold War era bases along the Arctic coastline. They currently do their hypersonic missile testing in the Arctic, and they really have a presence there, to say nothing of their joint military operations, naval drills with China off the coast of Alaska. So I think they want to, show the world that they do have capabilities in a place that no one else does. Now, more recently, I would say that their goal is to just let NATO eat itself up from the inside. That if President Trump wants to go after Greenland, then that's all the better for them. For Russia, for President Putin to say, well, let them tear each other up from the inside, and we'll take advantage of that in whichever way we could. And I think we're already seeing some of that rhetoric come out of the Kremlin.
Kenneth Rosen is our guest. Kenneth, hold on through the break. We are going to take a couple of phone calls if you have a question. This is the man who spent the last 3 years researching the Arctic and Greenland. If his name sounds familiar, he wrote that Amazon bestseller back in 2021 called Troubled. That was about behavioral treatment programs that got a lot of attention. His new work just out called Polar War, Submarine Spies and the Struggle for Power in a Melting Arctic. #1 on Amazon. The book just came out. Not just Greenland, but the Arctic, and what does it all mean? If you have a question for our guest, Kenneth Rosen, the phone number is 1-844-2-McGraw, 1-844-262-4729, 1-844-2-McGraw, 1-844-262-4729. The book is Polar War. Our guest is Kenneth Rosen. He is a well-respected journalist, and it is highly researched, highly investigated over the last 3 years. He takes you on an extraordinary journey, face-to-face with soldiers and community leaders and the people who live in the Arctic Circle. We'll come back and talk more about that and a couple of phone calls. Polar War, Kenneth Rosen, America at Night. Back in a moment.
This is America at Night with McGraw Millhaven. Join the nightly conversation, America at Night, with McGraw Millhaven.
He was a war correspondent in Syria and Iraq. He has now spent the last number of years researching his #1 best-selling book on Amazon. It came out earlier this month. It's called Polar War. A perfect time to talk to Kenneth Rosen, our guest. Kenneth, you mentioned the amount of climate change. You've got the ice caps melting in the Arctic, creating shipping lanes. Any other environmental issues because the ice is melting as fast as it is?
I mean, there's a ton, but I'll hit a few of the higher notes. Is that ice and snow reflects the sun and heat back into the atmosphere, and without that means the oceans and the Arctic Ocean itself is acting more like a heat sink and sucking up more of the heat, which then cools down the temperatures of the water and will change the biodome there forever. Then with the melting ice along the shorelines in Alaska, you're seeing worse and worse typhoons affecting coastal communities that are having to move away from their inherited lands. Ways of life for indigenous people and subsistence fishing and subsistence hunting is no longer possible because of those moves and because of the changes happening in their land, migrating herds of reindeer and all sorts of animals that live in the high north are making it very difficult for people who have called that place home for centuries, for decades, for years, for millennium, to continue on with their lifestyle. So those are just a few of the things that are changing, but that will only impact the people who live in the lower latitudes in a number of ways. It just remains to be seen. Right now, it's all eyes are on the Arctic to see what could happen next.
Let's talk about Greenland. What are the people of Greenland like? Tell us what your thoughts are about Greenland after this book.
I mean, Greenland was one of the most beautiful places I visited, and the people there were top-notch. They treated me with the utmost respect and welcomed me in their homes. It's hard to travel across Greenland, even given today's, ease of flight and maneuvering in ships and boats and snowmobiles. But oftentimes travel gets hung up on the weather of the day, and the Greenlanders that I met and spoke with and had the fortune to spend time with were willing to lend me their houses and their beds for however many number of days I was stuck in one place or another. Freezing fog and helicopters grounded would leave me stranded in some places, but everyone was extremely nice, and they said then, as they say now, Greenland's not for sale, and they have no interest in being part of America.
Yeah, what you say in the book is Greenland is open for business, but it's not for sale.
Yeah, their industry has been largely focused on the block grant that they received from Denmark to keep their livelihoods, to keep their communities intact, and they've thought that mining might save them. Over the last 30 years, they had thought that if they opened up to more mines, and maybe there's a potential to increase their revenues and to bolster their schooling systems. But It just wasn't the case because it said it's so hard to drill and mine there and operate in such a climate. So now they're shifting to looking into tourism, and they're open for business. They're thinking about rejoining the EU again. They've considered opportunities of investment from Russia and China, which were summarily knocked down by the Kingdom of Denmark at the behest of the United States. But they want to make it work for themselves. They want to claim independence and follow that route towards self-determination to become an independent nation. So going to become a part of a different realm for a different world power is not really part of their long-term goal.
Yeah. Looking at the map of the Arctic, right? We keep mentioning Greenland, and obviously that's the news of the day, so a lot of people are sort of focusing on that. But Alaska has a large swath in the Arctic. Canada has a large swath. Finland and Sweden have somewhat of the upper regions of their countries. Are they well populated, and what's the benefit of Greenland as opposed to Alaska or Finland when it comes to this Arctic Circle conversation?
Well, there's about 2.5 million people who live permanently above the Arctic Circle proper, and that's around the globe. But most Arctic regions are generally sparsely populated. The most populous city in the Arctic is Murmansk in Russia and the Kola Peninsula. Greenland and Alaska are pieces of the puzzle, as are Norway, Sweden, Finland. But it's a hard discussion to have because what has made America strong in the Arctic in the last 10, 20, 30 years post-Cold War has been its partnerships with those who live and operate there all the time, who live and operate in the Arctic day in, day out. And that includes Canada, which is our northern neighbor and possesses arguably some of the best territory for defending against over-the-horizon attacks or what have you. Greenland is already part of our national security insofar as the Pacific Space Base is our northernmost military infrastructure. There are all pieces of a puzzle that are important to have and to maintain close relationships with, but it's not necessary to overtake one or the other. I mean, our partnership with Norway is incredible, and it in part protects the U.S. because of all the listening posts that we do have up there to be able to understand what Russia is doing now that we've severed a lot of the communication diplomatic channels that we've had with them. So doubling down on what we do have and supporting our allies in that sphere is perhaps the best way forward. And as far as Alaska goes, I mean, just to see some of the infrastructure that we have out there, the Eielson Air Force Base and outside of Fairbanks in Alaska, the runways buckle because it's underlain by permafrost, and they have to redo the runways frequently. So, we have a lot in our own backyard that we need to work on rather than trying to expand outward and figure it out that way.
That was my next question, Kenneth Rosen, because forget Trump for a second, because that's all. Forget it for a second. We're hearing that we had bases in Greenland that we turned our back on, that we left after World War II. They're crumbling. It looks like we weren't really engaged with them and or wanting to bring them back. And it sounds like forget Trump, we should be engaged in sort of re-engaging with the Arctic Circle.
Yeah, we should re-engage, but we should re-engage, through partnership. And the bases that we did have during the Cold War and the Second World War are essentially the airports that they use today for commercial and personal travel. The U.S. Army built all the roads in Greenland, and it was a strategic point then when we were fighting wars on the ground, shipping thousands and thousands of soldiers across the Atlantic Ocean. But now it's sufficient to have one really powerful base, which we do in the north, and it's neglected. But that's not a product of Denmark's hand in Greenland or Greenland not wanting the U.S. to have a hand. I mean, that's a property that we lease and don't take care of. So there is certainly more attention that needs to be placed in the Arctic, and that's one of the arguments in the book. I think it starts at home, though, too, that we should be building more polar security cutters. We should be assisting Denmark in its need to have more vessels patrolling Greenlandic water. But that has been slow going, and it certainly wasn't happening over the last several administrations either.
Yeah, and the other thing is, and we'll sort of leave with this one, or the last line of questioning is, Denmark and Greenland have really said, America, we are more than happy to open our doors for you to tell us how we can help you and what do you need, right? I mean, they've been a partner, a great partner for ours, and really have never said no to us, correct?
Yeah, I mean, they even took the feedback that the waters around Greenland weren't being secured enough, to the tune that Denmark in December announced that it was spending $1.5 billion on shoring up its defenses around the Arctic island. So they do take feedback, and they do take it seriously, because they know that it is, a huge interest in matters of American national security as well.
Last question for you about these rare earth minerals. We keep hearing a lot about them, but then I keep hearing that even if we were to go in today and get the rights to them and everything else, it would still take 15, 20 years to bring to market. Is that what you're hearing, or is there some other rare earth mineral story that is sort of closer to market?
No, that's about right. I mean, even 50 years to bring it to market, given the constraints of working in the Arctic. And there are a great many things that are out there: cobalt, nickel, copper, silicone, iron, more than what many people are just focusing on. There are other projects that seem promising. There's this project led by a Danish professor seeking to use the rock that has been crumbled underneath glaciers to help combat climate change through various means. There are other ways of utilizing Greenland and its place in a melting Arctic for the betterment of the world and national security. I just don't think it's going to be right away through mineral extraction and oil drilling off the coast of Greenland.
Yeah. Simon & Schuster is the publisher. The book is called Polar War: Submarine Spies and the Struggle for Power in a Melting Arctic. Kenneth, the book just came out, but what's been the reaction since the book came out?
It's positive. Very great reaction from both the UK audience and the US audience, and I'm just glad that the story's finally getting some good attention that it deserves.
Yeah, the book came out just January 6th, so it's brand new, #1 on Amazon. You couldn't ask for better timing, but it's kudos to you for seeing this story 3-4 years ago and doing the legwork, which so many people aren't doing. But a true, if I dare say, 365-degree look at the Arctic and Greenland and all the things that people are talking about today. Kenneth Rosen, thank you for your time on a busy book tour. We appreciate it. Good luck with the book, and hopefully we'll check in with you down the road.
McGraw, thank you.
You got it. Kenneth Rosen is our guest. Well-respected war correspondent, Syria, Iran, Iraq, and as you've read about him in the New York Times, the New Yorker, his new book is called Polar War. Simon & Schuster is the publisher. Kenneth Rosen, Polar War. America at Night, back in a moment.
America at Night with McGraw Millhaven, where the nation comes to talk. You're listening to America at Night with McGraw Millhaven.
Hey, one postscript on this Greenland story, and of course we can take some phone calls next hour and talk about it and chew on it and talk about anything else you want to talk about. But one of the reasons why this current administration is claiming we need to take Greenland for our own is the oversized influence of Russia and China, and they're afraid that Russia is going to assert its power in the Arctic, and that would be bad for the United States. Well, one of the ways we could probably combat that is if we fought Russia together, say in an alliance of sort of countries that are aligned with our own economic interests, say like a lot of European countries. Say, like, for example, if they were to all agree, like, with a common theme of if you attack one of us, you attack all of us, and so there's strength in numbers. Maybe if we had an alliance like that, that might be beneficial. Like, say, NATO. And we should alert the administration that there's a reason why there are no Russian troops on any NATO country. They're in Ukraine. Ukraine's not NATO. So there's a reason why Russia is not on any NATO soil. That's one. Two, if we're so worried about Vladimir Putin and Russia using their influence in the Arctic Circle, why then did President Donald Trump invite Russian President Vladimir Putin to sit on the committee that will oversee the reconstruction of Gaza? According to Russian President Vladimir Putin, President Trump has invited him to sit on the Board of Peace, which sounds like a UN, but just for Gaza. Speaking to reporters at a briefing today, one of the spokesmen for Russia said Putin has received through diplomatic channels an invitation to join the Board of Peace. He said the Kremlin is now reviewing the invitation and hoping to get more details from the U.S. side. CNN asked the White House for a comment. No comment from, apparently, the White House as of yet. But if we're so worried about Putin, what are we doing offering him a seat to help rebuild Gaza? Maybe one of you wise folks next hour can explain that to me. Anybody been to the Sphere in Vegas? I haven't. I've seen pictures. It's pretty cool. I have not seen it, but people who've been there say you got to go see it. My sister went to go see The Wizard of Oz in the Sphere, and then she took pictures and showed me. So I haven't been to the Sphere. I've seen video of somebody inside the Sphere. But now, believe it or not, they're planning on constructing a mini Sphere just outside of National Harbor in Maryland. Yeah, just outside of D.C. The smaller Sphere will be announced, was announced. It'll hold 6,000 people. It'll open in 2030. That's according to the Washington Post. It's part of a global network of spheres, which would include similar exterior LED displays, just like the original in Vegas. If you haven't seen it, it's just a giant circle. I mean, gigantic. It's, it's like, I don't know, is it 50 stories high? And it's a ball, and it's a video screen, but just in the shape of a circle. And then on the inside, it's like the inside of the circle. It's pretty cool. I've only seen pictures and, of course, the video from my sister. So you got that going on. There was something else I wanted to mention before I was so rudely interrupted. There was something else that was, yeah. Getting back to the Arctic Circle for just a minute. Because, again, if we're so worried about Russia, why do we put them on the Board of Peace in Gaza? And if we're so worried about China coming in and using their influence up in the Arctic Circle, why do we continue to sell artificial intelligence chips from NVIDIA and then take a cut of every sale? So seems bizarre that we're getting into bed and business with China, all while trying to fight China in the Arctic Circle. So they're in bed with us, but they're against us. Or seems like they're for us, but they're against us. It's very, very confusing. So I don't understand any of this. Again, maybe somebody next hour can explain that to me. And then, did you see the story where birth rates in China have fallen to a 76-year low? Yeah, in China, birth rates, believe it or not, the lowest in 76 years. Last year was the lowest on record since 1949. It's the fourth straight year of decreases, leaving the second most populous country after India smaller and older. And that's got serious. That's not good. If you talk to anybody who understands population and decreasing populations and smaller populations, that's a problem when your country has more people dying than being born. And America is in danger of that happening here. There are certain places in the United States that have that happening, and there are people who are ringing the bell saying this is dangerous. Just another thing to worry about. All right, stay right there. Open phones next hour. Our executive director is Alex Hinton. Our engineer tonight is Richard Good. I'm McGraw Millhaven, and this is America at Night on Westwood One.
Westwood One presents America at Night. Here's your host, McGraw Millhaven.
Hey, welcome back. It's Open Phones here on a Monday night. It is Martin Luther King night. So there you go, Martin Luther King night. Happy Martin Luther King Day. I don't know, do you say Happy Martin Luther King Day? Do you say just marking the anniversary, marking Martin Luther King, acknowledging Martin Luther King, taking a moment to reflect on Martin Luther King and the changes he made in the country we live in because of Martin Luther King? Anyway, phone numbers are as follows. 1-844-2-McGraw, 1-844-262-4729. It is America at Night, and the hour is all yours. Earlier in the hour, early in the show, we talked with Rocky Sickmann, who was one of the 52 Iranian hostages who 45 years ago tomorrow was released. And if you missed any of that or missed all of it or missed some of it or want to listen to it again, it was tear-jerking, extraordinary. What a life the man has led. He very open, very honest, and very forthcoming about the struggles of getting back and reentering society and what he went through, and pretty extraordinary stuff. And then, of course, last hour we were talking to Kenneth Rosen. The book is called Polar War. You know, I don't understand. President Trump says he now wants to put some type of tariffs on some European countries because he wants Greenland for America, and I haven't heard this at all today, which I am certainly no free trade expert, but if you put tariffs on some countries in the European Union and not others, can't you just send it to Ireland? And then from Ireland, you can then set it on to a European country where there are tariffs? And so it doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to me why you would, it'd be like putting a tariff on goods coming out of Ohio. Okay, well, we'll send it to Tennessee, and then from Tennessee, we'll send it. So I don't think they thought that one through yet. That's one. Two, again, I don't understand. There's a lot I don't understand. But we want Greenland, regardless of what you think about it. We want Greenland. They're not going to give it to us. They won't sell it to us. So we're going to put tariffs on goods they send to us. Is sort of like saying we're just going to punch ourselves in the face until we get Greenland. Why would we charge ourselves more for goods coming from Europe? Why he's putting a tax on the American people because Denmark won't give us Greenland. Again, I don't understand the logic of it. Forgetting for a moment whether or not it makes sense for us to take Greenland and sort of ruin NATO in the process. But why do we want to punch ourselves in the face? The phrase "cutting off your nose to spite your face." I've been there. I've done that. We've all done it, right? Anybody who has a sister, anybody who has a brother, anybody who has a buddy, right? We've all done it. We've all done it. We've all punched ourselves in the face because we're angry. Okay, so we've all been there. But I don't understand. This doesn't make any sense. The president is making absolutely no sense to me. Forgetting the fact that he's upset because he didn't win the Nobel Peace Prize. So he really wants Greenland. Someone needs to tell him that Denmark, the country and the government of Denmark is not responsible for handing out the Nobel Peace Prize. It would be like wanting to invade Cuba because they didn't win the Oscars. I didn't win the Oscar. What do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to invade Cuba. Well, Cuba's really not responsible for the Oscars. So I don't understand all day today, people are freaking out, and I'm just scratching my head all day. I don't understand any of this. So maybe somebody else out there is smarter than I am and can explain all this to me. 1-844-2-McGraw, 1-844-262-4729. Those are the phone numbers. I know it's a nice, relaxing day. Markets were closed, banks were closed, federal holiday and all that. But if you are out there and want to chime in, we're happy to do it. We did get word on the text line. Hopefully, the text line will be up and running by next Monday. I missed the text line. I like myself a good text line. We've got cold weather all across the Midwest, and apparently it is going to get worse. We're going to get a little reprieve later on in the week, and then apparently an Arctic blast is going to be all over the Midwest and headed east. So we can look forward to that later on in the week. We can talk news. We can talk. There's. I'm hesitant to bring up something, just because I'm hesitant to bring up. I won't bring it up. Venus Williams, the oldest woman to play in the Australian Open. In the main draw, she lost in the first round. But got to give her credit, man. 45 years old. God love her. She's right. She's keeping on. Let's see here. China says its target of a 5% GDP growth in 2025 after announcing last week that it achieved the world's largest surplus ever last year. Again, proving my point, right? How are we getting goods into America from China with the tariffs? Well, they're sending them to Vietnam. They're sending them to other places, and then they're coming here. So tariffs don't really work, but that's a whole other issue. 1-844-2-McGraw, 1-844-262-4729. It is open phones, and we are more than happy to be bringing you the show. And I believe we've got, it's Catherine in Vancouver. Catherine in Vancouver, welcome to America at Night.
Oh, wow. Thank you. Take my call real quick.
You betcha.
No, hold. Thank you. I heard a repeat of your show when you were on the railway. You were talking about you drove the railway a lot when you were a kid. And I thought, oh, my goodness. Like, did anything really scary happen when you were on there?
When I was on the railroad?
Like driving it across U.S. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So we were talking about railroads earlier, and So when we were kids, my mother took us across the country on Amtrak, and it was two of my sisters and me and my mother, and we got on Grand Central Station, and we went all the way to Arizona, and then came all the way back. And truth be told, Catherine, it was the trip of a lifetime. Man, was it fun! And I'll tell you the only trouble that happened was. But before I tell you that, let me tell you the highlights. The observation deck. You would go back into the observation deck, and you'd sit up and you'd see the scenery go by, and it was magical. We would stop off. We would stop off at all these different towns along the way. For some reason, I remember New Orleans. For some reason, New Orleans sticks out as that cool town that we stopped at, and we got off the train, spent a day or two in New Orleans, and rode the trolley car, and just experienced America. And so we went all the way on the train to Scottsdale, Arizona. And we got off the train, and we spent, I don't know if it was a week or 10 days or whatever it was in Scottsdale, and then got back on the train and then came back. And I remember this today, that the conductor eating on the train. Oh, my goodness, as a 10-year-old, you got to eat on the train? That's the greatest thing in the world. My sisters made fun of me. I had a ham and cheese combination every day. I loved it when they said a ham and cheese combination. I thought it was like a filet. A ham and cheese combination for a 10-year-old was the greatest. But here's where I never felt unsafe, nothing. But here's where it all backfired. Well, they didn't really understand the power of the sun, okay? And so I got sunburn. I was fair-skinned, right? Blonde hair, blue eyes, fair-skinned. Yeah. And I I fried in Arizona. I mean, I was a fried egg, and so they didn't really know what to do, so they put Noxzema on me,
my goodness,
which was the wrong thing to put on somebody, and so they put Noxzema, so it was like doubly worse. So I was walking around, and they like greased me up like a stuck pig, and then put me out in the sun. So the only real trouble I got in was the mismanagement of the sunscreen. So, but no, I had a time of my life, and I would, I have a 5-year-old, and I got a hankering where maybe I might force her to take a train ride across America. It was the most fun I ever had.
Wow, that is cool.
Except for all my dealing with all my. Yeah. Go ahead, Catherine.
You remind me, my cousin lived next door, and she used to eat Noxzema stuff in the blue little can.
She used to eat Noxzema?
She would eat that stuff. You're crazy. Yeah, we're little kids.
I don't know about eating it, but holy mackerel.
Oh,
Catherine in Vancouver, thank you for listening. Thanks for calling in. Have yourself a good day. You gotcha. All right, Catherine in Vancouver. It is America at Night. Back in a moment.
Live from coast to coast, this is America at Night with McGraw Millhaven. Join the conversation. Call 844-2-McGraw. America at Night with McGraw Millhaven.
Hey, we're back. It's open phones, 1-844-2-McGraw, 1-844-262-4729. Thanks for joining us. The national championship game is officially over. Indiana, they beat Miami 27-21. The Indiana Hoosiers, undefeated, untied, 16-0. They are your national champion. Indiana Hoosiers are your national champion. Wow. Hats off to them, man. They did it. They beat everybody coming out of the Big Ten. And then the 12-team playoff, they beat everybody. They're the best team in college football. Got to give them their due. Indiana Hoosiers, congratulations out there. Dennis in Columbia, Missouri, welcome to America at Night.
Hey, McGraw. I wanted to congratulate you on your new show that you recently started there on Westwood One.
Well, thank you very much, Dennis. What do you like about it?
I still remember when Larry King had it, and perhaps he might be able to look into this. He used to do a thing late at night. He would have people call in. The question was, why are you up? I don't know if you remember those days or not.
I don't remember why are you up, but
it was a regular thing. He did it periodically. He would take a bunch of phone calls. Well, that was the question. Why are you up? It was all kinds of things. But anyway, I'm a radio personality myself here in Columbia. I work at a community radio station.
Sure. Okay. What do you do for them? What do you do for them?
Well,
are you on the air, or are you behind the scenes?
Yes, I am on the air and behind the scenes both. I have a couple of jazz programs that I do. One I do Friday morning, 3 a.m. to 5 a.m. and I do it live.
3 a.m. to 5 a.m. You do it live?
Yes, I do.
And is it music, or is it news or information, or what is it?
The name of the program is Cat Jazz Barn. The Cool Cats and sounds of jazz.
Yeah, nothing better than late night radio, right, Dennis?
Right. And I've gotten a couple of phone calls. Well, there was one time I was in there. I had kind of a little mishap, and my voice was caused me to holler and lose my voice at the time, and my voice was raspy. I felt like it was raspy and stuff, and I apologized for it. Well, I got a text message from one of my friends that listens to the program regularly from Atlanta, Georgia. He said he was sending me best wishes from Atlanta, Georgia, and he said my voice did not sound raspy at all. It sounded vintage.
Oh, nice. Yes, vintage. Yes, vintage.
That makes it worthwhile to do a live 3 a.m. show.
You're not old, Dennis. You're vintage. Don't you forget it. Hey,
exactly.
Dennis, thanks for listening.
89.5 here in Columbia. KOPM.org.
Thank you, Dennis. Thanks for listening. Thanks for calling, and thanks for letting me know you're out there. Have a good day. I got 1 minute. Listen to this. When I first got into radio, I was doing a sports show up in Omaha, Nebraska, and just when emails were coming into existence, and I got an email, and it said, "If I took your advice on," I'm paraphrasing here, but I still have it. It's something along the lines of, if I took your advice, if I bet according to your advice, I'd be broke. Love the show, Warren Buffett. Now, was it really Warren Buffett? You're not going to tell me it wasn't. So I got an email from Warren Buffett. Whether it was or it wasn't, I'm going to my grave and said it was. So there you go. 1-844-2-McGraw, 1-844-262-4729. The hour is all yours. Open phones. Indiana Hoosiers, the national champion. God love them. You got it. 27-21. It's over. Talk about that if you want to. But onward to baseball season now. I guess we have the NFC, AFC championship game, the Super Bowl, and then baseball season. Stay right there. America at Night. Open phones. Back in a moment.
You're listening to America at Night with McGraw Millhaven. What's on your mind? Call 844-2-McGraw and be a part of America at Night with McGraw Millhaven.
I have a friend of mine who is in the midst of a dry January. You've heard of this thing where you don't have you don't have a drink of alcohol for the month of January, and apparently it's catching on. And quite a few people who overindulge during the holidays. I guess they, to prove to themselves they can go a month without drinking. Go and have a dry January. And so we're in the midst of a dry January. However, I do have a friend who was in the midst of a dry January. However, he's somewhat reluctant to tell you. He's partaking in a dry January with a high January. He switched to gummies. And I kept telling him, well, wait a minute, hold on a second, that doesn't count. You can't. No. You're going against your thing here. There was no convincing him otherwise. He was fine. I said, you may or may not have a problem. I think it's time to go see somebody. Speaking of cannabis and dispensaries, have you been to one of these dispensaries? It's recently in Illinois. It's been legal for a number of years now. And I had friends who would come and visit me, and they'd say, hey, take me over to Illinois. I want to go to a dispensary. So I would take them over there. And I it's just not my bag. It's just not for me. No judging, no, it's just not my bag, not my thing. So I go over there. You ever been to one of these places? They're quite extraordinary. You walk into one of these places, and the one I walked into anyway looked like a casting call for the movie Cocoon. It had all these senior citizens there, and they had the big old glaucoma glasses on, and they had their walkers, and they had their canes, and they were walking in there, and they were, clearly they were in pain, and clearly it's, they're taking the gummies or whatever else has instead of pain medication, which, say what you want. Would you rather have them take a gummy, or would you have them take a medical grade opioid, right? So but it was just sort of bizarre. And you're talking to these, you're talking to Betty, and, she's having a nice conversation with the bud tender about whatever. And you're just thinking, you're like, oh, America in 2025. It's a strange world we live in. But there you go. It's open phones, 1-844-2-McGraw, 1-844-262-4729. We have a couple of open phones for you right now. The aftermath, the party begins with Indiana winning the national championship. It's got to be some connection between. It might be the only school in America that has a undefeated national championship football team and an undefeated national championship basketball team, right? The Indiana Hoosiers with Bobby Knight won. I'm going to get the year wrong here. Was it 90? Was it 74, 75, 73, right in there, 76? They won a national championship undefeated. It's I just going through recent memory. Has UCLA ever won a national championship undefeated? I don't know if UCLA has ever won a national championship. They've had some very good football teams over the years. I have to do a little checking on that. But Indiana, if it's not the only one, it's one of one or two or three where you win a national championship undefeated on the football team, and then at some other point winning it on the basketball side. Pretty extraordinary. I mean, I was rooting for him. I no disrespect to Miami, but as a Husker fan, it's in my DNA. I'm just not allowed to root for Miami. Marie in St. Louis, Missouri, you're on America at Night. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, thank you very much, McGraw. Listen to you in the morning also, and totally enjoy the evening program also.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I know very little about basketball, but okay. I know enough to be confused about the extremely low score of the college game, and also wondering how does this affect at all the online betting?
How does this football game, you mean?
No, I'm sorry. Yeah, football. No wonder it was a low score. I don't know why I was thinking basketball.
Yeah, I don't know what the point spread was or the over under. I don't know. I guess I can check that on the break, or Alex can write it on
it's
totally
on the irrelevant since it wasn't basketball, right?
Well, but they're still betting on college football, right? There's
all
sorts of there's all sorts of betting on college football. And look, I mean, the college sports is a whole new world. Indiana never would have won a national championship, except for now you can pay the players and you can have NIL deals and name, image, and likeness, and they now get all this big-time money, and that funnels back to the players. And I for all the problems in college football and college sports, I cannot begrudge the players finally have a chance to cash in and make some money, because everybody else was making money off the players except for the players.
Oh, I agree. I agree. And it's just another very bad situation.
Well, the gambling is only going to get worse.
Right.
It is only going to get worse, and it's only going to be harder and harder to sort of detect, because right now they're idiots, right? Because somebody decides to somebody decides to throw a game or throw a prop bet or something, and then they tell too many people. And so therefore, right, all of a sudden there's heavy betting on one side or the other. There's heavy betting on a Chinese basketball game, and all of a sudden people are like, okay, clearly there's something going on. But when it becomes so widespread, you're going to have one basketball player tell his roommate or tell his buddy, hey, you know what, or his girlfriend. Or his boyfriend, or whatever, or his dad, or his mom, or whoever, and just say, "Hey, you know what? Tonight, I'm gonna come up lame, and I'm only gonna score 10 points. So bet the over, bet the under, and lo and behold, someone's gonna start making some serious money on the side and not telling anybody about it. And so I think they've opened themselves up for a nightmare scenario, the one in which the likes of which we haven't seen.
I agree. Well,
Marie,
don't be surprised if I call back during basketball season with a question about some other sport. Okay?
Well, you can call back during basketball season and say, boy, these football games sure are high scoring. Marie in St. Louis. Yes, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, do you think somebody along the line is going to scrutinize this first season of football and see if they can detect if there was any strange things going on? I don't know. Marie, thanks for the phone call. I don't know. Who knows?
I will say this though. The old system was so beyond broken, right? Was it Reggie Bush who had to give back his Heisman Trophy because an agent signed it beforehand and gave his father some money? I mean, it's just absurd that Reggie Bush had to go through that nightmare scenario and being soiled, his reputation being soiled, and had to give back the Heisman Trophy because of what? And now you have players, who are making $6 million, $5 million. There are college football players who are choosing to stay in college and make more money in college than going to the pros and making less money in the pros. When you have coaches who leave, who entice your son or daughter, come to my program and we'll give them a great education and they'll play for me and it'll be a wonderful experience, and you ship the kid off to the school, and then a year later that coach leaves because there's greener pastures and more money somewhere else, right? How many coaches have left kids in the dust because they got a better offer? Now, the players are leaving the coaches in the dust because the players get a better offer. And you know what? I can't blame them. How many athletic directors are making millions of dollars? How many networks are making millions of dollars? Announcers and beer companies and Coca-Cola companies and Geico commercials, and I mean the people who are making the people making the ad, the people buying the ad, the people selling the ad, the $1,000 tickets, the stadiums, the taxes, the revenue, the parking. Everybody was making a nickel, except the quarterback, except the running back, except the wide receiver, except the defensive guy. They were all making it, except the players, because it was amateur. Give me a break. So I God bless Indiana. I think they probably should have come up with a better system before they destroyed the old system. But be that as it may, it is the wild, wild west, and the players deserve. I'm not going to see the umpire. I'm not going to see the coach. I'm not going to see the athletic director. I'm going to see the players, and the players should probably get the lion's share of the money. So those are my thoughts. 1-844-2-McGraw, 1-844-262-4729. America at Night. I'm McGraw Millhaven. Back in a moment.
America at Night with McGraw Millhaven. What's happening in your world? Call 844-2-McGraw and be a part of America at Night with McGraw Millhaven.
We either have to teach Alex how to bet or not teach him how to bet. We got a little thing on my screen that Alex can shoot me little notes. And God love you, Alex. Alex says, it looks like the over-under was 7.5 points. No, that was the line. The over-under was 46.5. So Indiana scored 27. Miami scored 21. That's a total of 48 points. So the over wins. The over-under was 46.5. So the over wins by what? 1.5 points? Right? And then Indiana was favored by 7.5. So Indiana had to win by more than 8 or more to win. They won by 6. So Miami covers by 1.5 points, and the over carries the day by 1.5 points. So that's how that works, Alex. Alex, don't learn how to bet. You lose all your money. And definitely stay away from the parlay. Why anybody bets a parlay is beyond me. It's hard enough to win one. Don't try and win two. Parlay is just a way for those gambling sites to keep your money. It's just harder to win. Don't fall for that. If you have to gamble, don't do the parlay. All right, so I got a couple minutes here. I love these sites that they have these 10 quotes attributed to the wrong people. I always like these things. So what's the website? Dictionaryscoop.com. I didn't sign up for this. They just started sending this to my inbox, and I keep on trying to delete it. But here was a good one. So here are 10 quotes people never said. Marie Antoinette never said, "Let them eat cake." It appeared in Rousseau's writing when the Queen was just a child. It became a symbol of the elite ignorance during the French Revolution. But blaming her directly is unfair historical myth-making. So Marie Antoinette never said, "Let them eat cake," though it plays into the narrative, doesn't it? Liberal media. Gandhi never said, "Be the change you wish to see in the world." His sentiment being what it is, of self-responsibility and all that type of stuff. But it's not, Gandhi did not write that on his Instagram account. Voltaire did not say, "I disapprove of what you say, but I will defend to the death your right to say it." Apparently, that was a quote written by Evelyn Beatrice Hall. So there you go. I have no idea who Evelyn Beatrice Hall is. Edmund Burke never said, "The only thing necessary for triumph of," Edmund Burke never said, "The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing." Edmund Burke never said that. According to dictionaryscoop.com, Sherlock Holmes, Arthur Conan Doyle never wrote "Elementary, my dear Watson." Apparently, that was for the movies. They liked the phrase and it stayed. But Arthur Conan Doyle never wrote Sherlock Holmes saying "Elementary, my dear Watson." Albert Einstein never said insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. That really came from Rita Mae Brown in the 1980s from Narcotics Anonymous. So that's interesting. It's true, though. We do it. Everyone falls into that habit. Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. If I had more time, I would have written a shorter letter. Great quote. Mark Twain didn't say it. Instead, it was written by Blaise Pascal in 1657. Let's see, here's another one here. I cannot tell a lie. George Washington did not say that. It was made up by Mason Locke Weems to give George Washington more of a national glow. And here's the last one. Well-behaved women seldom make history. Marilyn Monroe didn't say it. Eleanor Roosevelt didn't say it. It was written by historian Laurel Thatcher Ulrich. She was a historian, and it was meant as an observation, not a call for rebellion. So there you go. Well-behaved women seldom make history. It was just a statement. It was an observation. Did you ever read the book, I Never Said Half the Things I Said? Written by Yogi Berra. I never said half the things I said. Yogi Berra, of course, the greatest of all time when it comes to silly quotes. But he went on to write a book might have been his late in his life. It was all of his famous quotes. And the book was titled, I never said the things I said, or I never said half the things I said, which is a classic Yogi Berra quote. All right, we're done for the night. I want to give a big shout out to Rocky Sickmann, who joined us earlier in the evening. He was one of the 52 Americans who were held hostage by Iran in 1979. Tomorrow is the 45th anniversary of their release. Also, last hour, we checked in with Kenneth Rosen, who wrote the book called Polar War, and it spent the last 3 years investigating what is going on in the Arctic Circle. And if you want to know what's going on today in the news, you want to throw tomatoes at everybody, fine. But when you want to know what actually matters and what's going on in the Arctic Circle, it was a riveting conversation, and that book is #1 on Amazon. And Polar War is the name of the book. Submarine Spies and the Struggle for Power in the Melting Arctic. Next hour, we're done. We're done. Tomorrow on the program, we are going to speak with Bob McCullough. And if that name sounds familiar, he was a friend of mine, still is a friend of mine. But do you remember the Ferguson riots? Do you remember the arguments, the police getting in the way of the protesters getting in the way of the police? Very similar to what you're seeing up in Minnesota. We'll get his thoughts on what's going on in Minnesota. We'll do that tomorrow, among other things. Our executive director is Alex Hinton. Our engineer tonight is Richard Good. I'm McGraw Millhaven, and this is America at Night on Westwood One.